Today, I'm looking at deploying and testing Next.js on a VPS or virtual private server. I'm expecting Next.js to run pretty well because at its most basic, this is just going to be a Node server running Next.js, and it should have full support for Next.js features. But I've built a Next.js app that tests 13 of the most important features, and I want to try it out on a VPS. The application uses the Next.js pages architecture. It's actually been upgraded recently to Next.js 14, and I'm going to just do a very basic deployment out to this VPS. I don't want to manage the DNS. I don't want to work with SSL. This is just going to be the most basic deployment to a VPS with Next.js. And I do want to give a shout out to this other video that I worked through. So Deploy Your Next.js on a VPS is the video that I kind of learned from to be able to make this deployment happen. So I do want to recommend, if you need more resources on a VPS with Next.js, check out that video. What are a couple of reasons that you might want to be hosting on a VPS? And the one that I get the most often is full control. Maybe you need full control of your application. Maybe you want full control. Maybe you don't need it, but you want that full control of adding all the customizations that you might want, being able to host and deal with the entire network. Maybe you have a location that you really need your application to live in. That might be a reason for you to use a VPS. Maybe you have existing infrastructure that you already have that has the option of a VPS. Maybe you're using cloud providers that you're already familiar with and they offer a VPS, so that might be the reason for it. Or maybe you think it's going to be cost effective. And that one I'll argue on, because I think that the time that you'll save from platforms as a service like Vercel or Netlify are going to far outweigh any cost savings in terms of dollar amounts. There's a whole lot of factors to argue, or there's a whole lot of factors that come into it. I still am going to be pushing for Vercel and Netlify, but maybe for you, a VPS is something that you want to check out. So that's why I wanted to make this video. I want to test all different hosting platforms with this host check Next.js app, and VPSs are one of them. Now, the VPS that I've gone with is Hetzner. When I looked online, trying to get different recommendations on a VPS that wouldn't break the bank for me, this is what came up. It worked out really well for me. What you choose can be completely different. There was a whole lot of different providers out there. I chose this one just because it was cheap and convenient for me. The process of actually getting a server are going to be probably pretty similar for you. And I know that the deployment process itself is going to be pretty similar as well, where you follow these same steps and it should get working in your VPS environment. So taking a peek at the VPS that I have, I'm using a Ubuntu server. This is hosted in Oregon. So it's pretty close to me in California. So that's why I chose Oregon. But this has been so far, really great way to get up and running with Next.js in a VPS environment. So I'm going to just give an overview of the deployment process that I took. I've already got it deployed, but I'll give you an overview of what I did in order to get this working on the VPS. So the first thing that we need to do is head over to our terminal in whatever Windows, Mac OS, Linux operating system that you're working on, and we're going to SSH into our server so that we can get access to the server that we have running in Oregon. I've copied the URL and I'm going to SSH into that as the root user. I've pasted my password in here. We'll log in. And we are now into my Ubuntu 2 GB HIL-1. That's exactly what we see up here. So it matches. We are in the server. We are in a virtual private server somewhere in Oregon, and we've got access to it. So the things that we want to do first, though, are check out what's already installed in the server and what do we need to install. So when I got this, Node was not installed. Now I have Node installed. I've got 20.12.2, but how I got that installed was with the Node version manager. So this is a package that's available to us, and it's inside of GitHub in VM. And scrolling down, I'll go to the installation usage. So I use the first curl script here to install Node version manager into my server. And then if we go to the usage, nvm install node is how you can get your latest version of Node installed. I also did nvm install --lts to get the latest long-term service version in. So you can do that to get Node installed. So inside of the terminal, that would look like, once you have the curl script ran with nvm install --lts is what I did to install that latest long-term support version of Node. Within my server, I had to check whether or not Git was installed. And for me, Git was installed. Just typing Git will show you if the commands start popping up. That means that you have Git installed. The next thing I did was clone my repository down. So heading over to GitHub, I have the host check Next.js application. This is the application that's the pages architecture currently running Next.js 14. You can fork it, clone it, change the version, change packages, add more tests to it if you want. But all I did was clone this down onto my server. so that we had access to the code. And if you do, make sure to give it a star. That helps out. I appreciate it. Heading back into the terminal. So now if we look, I've cloned my repo and I have this host check Next.js folder here. I'll cd or change directory into that. And now we see that we have all the code here. We have all the code that we need to run our application. What do we need to do first is install all the packages. So you're wanting to run npm i, get our moderate severity vulnerabilities. I'll have to check those out, see if they're easy to fix. And now we could right now do an npm run dev. We could npm run dev. This would start up on localhost. We would have the localhost version of Next.js running in our server. But we don't want a localhost we don't want the npm run dev version. We want a production build to be run. We want that production optimized build. So we want to do an npm run build so that we can create the optimized build, npm run build. And depending on the specs of your server, this could take long, this could take short, this could take different times. This is why I'm actually really happy with the performance that I'm getting right now, even with this little server that I have. But this might not be a production-ready server for you, but great for testing, great for showing you how to deploy onto a VPS. So we've got the npm run build finished. This means that we are now working with a production-ready application. And what we can do now is actually just an npm run start. This is going to start a production version of Next.js based on that build that we just did. And it'll start Next.js on our server. We will be running a production version of Next.js that's accessible to the public. So if we do npm run start, you can see that it's now running a production version on localhost 3000. But how do we access localhost 3000? When it's on this server that's in Oregon? Well, localhost is going to be that our server IP address. So if we head over to the 5.78.44.209:3000, we are now on that server, on that VPS with Next.js running. I can go to get static props, get server-side props, and this is running Node on the server, running Next.js, and we see that it's working. And what we can do now is actually run those Cypress tests against this and see how well Next.js is supported by this VPS. And I'm expecting good results. This is really just a Node environment running Next.js, so it should support everything, at least feature-wise, for Next.js. VS Code environment, I have my environment URL for Cypress set to the VPS that I have running. npm run Cypress open will open up the Cypress console. EDE testing is what I want. I'm going to do this inside of Chrome. And we can run our 13 specs here. And I've changed my ISR test, and I'm still not sure if I'm happy with how it's testing ISR. So I'm going to skip through this because now ISR takes a full 60 seconds to test. But we'll come back and see what the results are when we get back. Okay, so the tests have finished, and that darn ISR test is still failing. I need to figure out a better way of testing ISR because what I've been doing right now is not working, at least on the Cypress tests. I did test this manually in the application myself, and it does work. So ISR is working in a VPS with Next.js. So don't believe this test. Believe me when I say that I'm testing Next.js myself, and it is working. But you can see everything else is working. We are seeing API routes work, get server-side props, internationalization, middleware, on-demand ISR, Next.js config rewrites. Everything is working that we're testing inside of Next.js. So a VPS running Node is a perfectly valid place to be running Next.js. If that's the environment that's going to work best for you. But again, if you can see here, I'm in a not secure environment. I haven't set up SSL. I haven't done anything for my other security or performance enhancements. I haven't done this global distribution of this app. This is just a single app running on a Node server in Oregon. It's not distributed, has no DDoS protection, has minimal security. So there's a lot more that you need to do if you're going to take your Next.js application on a VPS to production. But this is at least an environment where maybe it's a great environment for you to test in. Maybe you find a way that this is more cost effective. But if you're asking me where to host your Next.js application, you're going to still hear me say Vercel and Netlify. But putting up all the features on the screen, we can see that it has good support for everything. If a VPS is what you need to run Next.js on, you can, at least with the pages architecture, you know that you have full support for Next.js. Now with that, if you have other hosting providers that you want tested out, let me know, leave them down in the comments. If you like this video, please leave it a like, please subscribe so that you can check out the other videos of me testing on different hosting providers. And I'm also slowly working on the Next.js app router support. Subscribe so that you can see how the app router does on different hosting providers as well. Thanks.